listen to the episode, Becoming Earnhardt, episode 6, he's in this press conference and he says, I'm going to run all the laps. I'm healthy. I'm good. Doctors cleared me. Took the brace off Tuesday. No pain, blah, blah, blah. And so in his mind, he's sending a message out there that he's 100%. Gets in the car, and you got to know Dad, right? This man was hard-headed, not going to let anybody see weakness, not going to let anybody know that he was tired. Now, he wasn't going to let anyone know that he was in pain, ever, right? And so he's in so much discomfort that he's going to get out of the car. That was in his rookie year, right? He's just now got a hold of this thing, got a hold of this opportunity. You saw him try to get out of the car at Indy and turn it over to Mike Skinner when he had his sternum broke.
Got emotional.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I will never forget that interview.
Right. And so maybe he didn't have this sort of emotional reaction as a rookie, but he certainly damn sure didn't want to get out, right? Probably more then than he did when he got out at Indy for breaking the sternum. He's established, career behind him, champion, all those things. Getting out was probably, he knew in his mind, the smartest thing to do, even though it was an emotional thing. But as a rookie, it was probably the opposite in terms of less emotional and more more like, I can't give this up. I got this finally. And so anyhow, he gets out, so he's obviously very uncomfortable. And he gets out in 2 races, Richmond and Dover.
Right.
We haven't, in episode 7, we'll talk about Dover and who his relief driver was and all those things. But we know as we get to the end of episode 6 that he had relief in 2 events. And he came back too soon. He did it only because he's still got a shot to win the Rookie of the Year title. He did it also because he is fading out of the top 10 in points, and that was, all those things. He talks about it in these articles that he wrote or helped write, that's on his mind. Sliding back through the points is bothering him. Watching, Milliken out there competing and getting points in the rookie battles bothering him. And so with just, half a dozen races to go, he's like, I got to come back. This is getting out of hand. My opportunity is going to be gone in a couple weeks if I don't come back now. So I think he certainly rushed it. I think that he I will say, one of the fun things about doing this series is a lot of people, there's some old timers and some big time hardcore fans on social media that'll post photos in the replies that correlate to the episode. There's a picture of Dad and Lenny Pond at Richmond. Lenny getting in the car, Dad getting out. And Dad is helping Lenny, get in the car. So Dad's not in so much discomfort, that he can't, help Lenny climb in the car. Typically if a driver's in bad shape, they get out of the car and they go to the pit wall or go right to the pit, sit down, get some, get some oxygen or cold towels or whatever, and the pit crew's ready with a plan to help Lenny get in the car, right? But in this case, you can see in the picture that I saw on social media that Dad's like helping Lenny. He's just gotten out. He's helping Lenny. And then, Lenny goes on and runs great and gets him a good finish. So they must have had a plan before the race that this was, I know they didn't know Lenny was going to fall out and be available, but anyhow, to answer your question, he absolutely came back too soon. It's scary to think about what might have happened if he'd gotten another crash and re-injured his collarbones. I mean, them things.
We were paranoid when you came back, to be honest with you. Even after your final year, with your final year, you came back, you're healthy. Boy, the smallest little crash would have just, nobody wanted to see that.
Yeah, no. And so he's going through he's running the laps in the next couple events, and you're like, them little collarbones, they ain't like they used to be.
Right. I assume you break it once. It's not as durable, not as strong. God, I've never broken a collarbone. I don't know that I know many people that have, but boy, I can't imagine something more painful.
That's another thing too. Like you see if people break collarbones, I'll use the NFL as an example. They kind of have a hard time getting up.
Right.
And Kathy says that the person that called her is like, yeah, he got out of the car, he's walking, right? Because that was the thing. Like when a guy crashed back then, well, did he get out?
Right.
Right.
That's usually is he okay?
That's the check.
That's right. If he got out, he's okay.
Okay, he got out. So it's not, whatever he's got, whatever's going on, not life-threatening. And so, yeah, he got out and he walked. He was walking. Okay. I can rest easy. But damn, broke both collarbones.
Mm-hmm.
And got out and walked to wherever, right?
That's superhero status.
I don't know, man.
Because I've heard some crazy Dale Earnhardt.
Y'all are going to laugh, man. I'm sorry, Mike.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
So, your collarbones, I always feel like that they have a role, right, in your posture and all those things, right? So, when you break your collarbones, both of them together,
how do you sit up?
How does that not change something permanently in terms of your posture?
Right. You have to assume that like maybe your spine is now taking on a load it wasn't designed to take.
Yeah, and your shoulders.
All of it, right.
So I remember in this photo of me and him sitting on the couch, he had this brace that sort of pried his shoulders back. Almost kind of like being in kind of a full Nelson, if you will. And he wore that for 4 or 5 weeks, he says, until he finally took it off.
Yeah.
But I don't know, man. That was the audio. One of the things I'll tell you, man, when we were editing this and putting it together, so I'd never heard the brace audio.
Right.
And that guy that comes on, so people always pick on me for being in the broadcast booth and talking about car in the wall. Where the hell you think I get it from? I mean, I grew up listening to Barney Hall and MRN.
Jackie Arute.
Yeah. I grew up listening to all of the races on the radio. We might not have, even in the 80s, there weren't, every race wasn't broadcast, and we might not have the channel. I might not be in a place where we're watching it on TV. We didn't plop down in front of the TV to watch a race. That didn't start really happening until the 90s. And so that's how, when a car crashes, when a car loses control, that's how you react.
Yeah.
That's the normal reaction to that.
Even today, the MRN guys have that sound, that Dave Moody, that Mike Bagley. When there's trouble, the octaves go up.
Yeah. That's the reaction you should have.
Yeah.
And so that I'd never heard any of the audio from that race at Pocono when Dad breaks his collarbones, but that guy comes on and it's eerily, it's frightening. We all know the outcome, but imagine not knowing the outcome and hearing that live in the moment. His call on that crash has a very big tinge or a very, there's a lot of concern.
Yeah.
Right? When you hear him, when you hear that call, there's a lot of like fear almost in his voice about how bad the impact was. Dad's leading the race. And so there's no footage that I know of. There might be a little footage of the crash, but it's very faint. I can't remember. I don't think there is actually. But there's no camera. There's no photos on social media. All of my 49 years, I've never seen an image of this car crashed or even after the crash. So you don't really have those things to use your imaginations to try to imagine how the crash looked and all those things.
Yeah.
But that call is eerie, man. It's a bit sketchy, man. If you were sitting there at home, Mamaw sitting in her house in Kannapolis, and you're listening to the race, and you're making a sandwich, and everything's going well, and Dad's leading the race, and they go to commercial, and they come back, and trouble.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Then you got to sit on your ass and wait for information.
Right. That's right. And I think that's why Kathy, we put out a video. It's on our YouTube page where Kathy and Kay, your aunts, your dad's sisters, who are so important in this series, right? Like they have these, they will tell you we don't remember about anything, but then they remember moments that are the key moments. And you said it just a little bit ago when Kathy goes, well, he got out of the car. She remembers enough to know there was the moment of not knowing if he was okay. You got that confirmation that he's out of the car. You know he's tough as nails. He's going to be fine.
How about Randy and Mamaw driving to Pocono,
right?
And Dad missing them by getting on a commercial flight and going home, getting checked out, right? How in the hell do they not call Dad at the hospital and say, hey, man, we're going to come up there and see you, all right? Who gets in a freaking car and drives
to Pennsylvania
without letting the person that's in Pennsylvania know you're coming? That surprised me. They damn sure had phones back then.
There's definitely some questions that can be asked in that, but the story of him leaving the hospital before his family gets there is still kind of badass. I mean, he
just is in the hospital. He don't know they're coming.
I know he doesn't.
And they're like, all right, Mr. Earnhardt, your stay is over.
It's funny.
Here, you're free to leave. And he's like, okay, I'll get he probably called somebody at the team, and they're like, we'll get you a commercial flight. Get your ass on over to the airport. And he's like, you got it. And
Kathy goes, you got to remember there were no cell phones back then. I'm like, yeah, but there were telephones.
Yeah, there were rotary.
There were
dial
phones.
them on up.
It wasn't like, smoke signals or anything. Pony Express was already out there.
I know. That's what's so weird about that. And damn it, it's not one person. It's not one individual that made this decision to get in a car and drive.
It's a whole family.
No, it's two. It's Mamaw and Randy.
Right. Nobody thought to check. Nobody thought to check before they made the trip.
And none of the rest of the family, like Kay and Kathy,
nobody
are
stopped
going,
them.
You know what? Maybe we got to call first.
Here's an idea. Maybe I'll even do it for you. I'll save you the hassle. I'll call up there. I don't know. They had an interesting dynamic, though. It's like when I listen to stories,
I'll tell you, you're right.
From your aunts, like it wasn't like the family dynamic of like everybody sitting around a dinner table and having conversation. Hey, how's your life going? And all this stuff. They didn't talk like that.
No. So, Kay, and if you haven't listened to Kathy on the Dale Jr. Download, the interview we did with her in the past, I think we did it about a year ago. Man, she came in here and sits down. Now, I've known her all my life, right? And been around her and seen her around Dad. And the family dynamic, there's a bond, there's love, there's trust, and all those things. But dude, she came in here and straight up dropped a bunch of truth bombs on us that I really wasn't even expecting, right? So just about Ralph and the relationship and how Ralph fathered those kids and Mamaw's approach and then their relationship with each other when they were younger and how it and you can see it in when they're sitting here talking about recalling that 1979 season with Dad. Kay and Kathy have such a different temperature.
That's right, they do
on it, right? Yep. Kay's very reserved and just glad it happened. So thankful, and Kathy's more. Well, I had a couple issues with this, and Kathy's more opinionated.
Yes,
about it, right? Yeah. And she was the one that raced herself. She certainly has the rights to be as opinionated about it as she is because she, in a way, was kind of the one that could totally. She was one of the girls in the family that could really relate to what was going on. And I think there's a lot of Kathy that wishes she could have had an opportunity, right, in racing.
Interesting.
Yeah, she did drive and drove well and raced a lot. She didn't just try it a couple times. And, there was a 3 or 4 year span. She ran about 12 races. So she was, I don't know, man. It would be, I'm assuming, I don't know for sure, but I would, knowing what, I mean, with the way the world is now, right? And opportunities that are there for females in motorsports, right? Imagine, Kathy given that sort of playing field to work in is got to be compelling or got to be interesting for her. I just wonder what her thoughts are on that.
Well, you and I have an idea, and that is that when the series is run, we do one final episode where it's bringing some of the people in that were part of the series and then kind of having this roundtable conversation. She would be one that we would want. Maybe that's something that we talk to her about.
That's a great. Maybe we could ask her, and I'm gonna assume again, in the 70s, right, when she's getting these opportunities to race against other females. It's a controlled environment, right? And she's not getting reps in a race car against dad's competitors and dad's peers, right? But she goes out there and does really well, and she's like maybe thinking, what might this lead to? It leads to nothing. And then she grows up and watches everything happening in today's world where there are opportunities, there are avenues, there are places and ways that females can acquire, chances to drive and race, and there's a pathway, right, that didn't exist. I wonder if she might not even care, but maybe I wonder how that makes her feel.
Especially she watched Kelly get into car and succeed.
She did.
She's watched Carson, Kennedy. Yeah. She's watched her family actually have bigger opportunities and do well enough. So you're right. That's a good question that we ought to ask.
I wonder. So I sense in her a bit of frustration. It's not like with Kay. It's sunshine and roses, man. Sunny and 70. With Kathy, there's some resistance or there's some underlying frustrations and I wonder where that comes from. Do you feel that when you?
I don't know. I mean, now that you meant, no, I don't feel it until you say it. Maybe she's definitely more opinion. First of all, let's just be clear. Anybody that's listening to this that has met Kathy Watkins knows that she's like the sweetest person on the planet. Yeah. So when we say that there's a tension or a frustration, she doesn't show it in a way that it doesn't manifest the way how she behaves or acts around other people.
It may just be her demeanor where she was the one that held Dad accountable, and she even does today, right? She even still does today. She doesn't let Dad off the hook for nothing. Didn't let Ralph off the hook for anything. If you listen to the interview that we had with her, she's really on. Kay would never, never open those cans, right? And I don't see her ever saying a bad word about anybody, right? Or ever holding anybody, accountable in the way that. And maybe that's just Kathy, who she is.
She has a level of candor and transparency that honestly I see a lot in you, where you guys are just going to tell it how it is. You don't know any other way, and she's that way. That's not to say she's trying to, she's going to tell it how it is. She's very opinionated.